It might be the summer breeze, it might be the summer trees, but I'm feeling better now. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Coming up on today's show, we talk about practical steps to developing a healthier lifestyle. For the last 50 years, we've been told to follow a diet that's low in this or in that. From as far back as the 1950s, many organizations have advocated a low-fat diet, and more recently, low-carbohydrate diets are all the rage. But as we've been learning on the show, one man's meat is another man's poison. Well, a warm welcome to Real Health. I'm Stacey Holland, and thanks so much for tuning in again. Grocery shopping can be a demoralizing occasion, well, especially after you've made the decision to be healthier. Reading food labels is tantamount to reading something in a language you don't even speak or understand, and it becomes increasingly harder when companies catch on to a health craze and then they attempt to bamboozle you with clever marketing tactics. The reality is that we are what we eat, and so we have to make an effort to become better educated. And with so much misinformation out there, we've called in our team of experts to try and demystify the topic. To help us make better food choices, we have in the studio Jane McKenzie, and she is a nutrigenomicist. We have food specialist Rachel Jessen, and a familiar face on the show, nutritional therapist Nikki Robertson. Ladies, it's so great to have you with us. It's the first time that the two of you have been with us. Finally, we've been waiting to get you on the show a while because you've co-authored the book with Ian, and you've got to go out and get this book. It makes nutrition and healthy living so easy to understand. And Jane, we've been waiting to have you on the show for a while as well.
It's lovely to be here.
Jane, before we get into everything, I read your title out, nutrigenomicist.
Yes.
What is that? What do you do?
Okay. The emphasis there is the part genome. Okay, which focuses specifically on our DNA and our genetics.
Yeah.
In my practice in Bryanston, I see a lot of food complications and health complications that are directly related to our genetics and our genes, and they've been passed down generation after generation. And you'll see things like heart disease and diabetes just occurring earlier and earlier in the generations that follow. And the reason for that is that because we haven't adjusted the way we're eating and cooking and looking at food, and then certain genes get switched off, the telomeres stop growing and so on and so forth, and then the gene then, when the baby's born, is switched off, the baby has got a predisposition to diabetes or whatever it might be. So the impact of food is critical on our DNA and on our genome.
Yeah.
And that's critical for rejuvenation of the cells and, well, the human race in the long term.
Rachel, what led you to get into your specific field?
I've always been interested in food from a very young age.
Yeah.
So around 13, I was buying my own fruit and vegetables because we never had enough in the fridge.
And you were the anomaly, I'm sure, right?
Probably. But I was very into sport.
Yeah.
And your body performs really well when you eat well. It doesn't help when you eat that pack of knickknacks. It really, it functions better when you're eating better. So from a very early age, I was quite sporty, and that drew me into being healthy. And then I was never a Coca-Cola girl. I always found it taste like metal. So I've always had a very big interest in food.
So you've had a good palate. Is that because of how you ate, your upbringing, what your mom cooked?
My upbringing was atrocious.
Really?
It was shocking. It was processed foods. It was the MSG packed macaroni and cheese boxes that you could buy that you would just mix in with mince. It was terrible. It was Nutellas and chips and lunch bars, and that was the food my mom was feeding me because that was what she knew. And being a single mom, a busy mom at that, she didn't have time to really cook.
What are the major obstacles and barriers to living a healthier lifestyle that you see?
Very often it's planning and preparation. So there's a perception that we don't have time to think about what to make and to go shopping and to get all those meals ready. And it really is a perception because it can be very easy. So it's, if you want something badly enough, you'll find the time. If it's pressing enough, you'll make a plan. So that is probably the first step. I'm too busy. I've got a full-time job kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm a mom.
Yeah. But then you, on the other side, see how much time it sucks out of you when you're unhealthy. And when medicine can't do anything more for you, there's no more pills to take because you're exhausted and feeling sick all the time, and I've got a bloated stomach, and your doctor doesn't know what to do with you anymore. And how much time does that waste? Because you are not effective and you're not there, you're not present. And it all comes down to what you're eating. So when we get someone on a whole food diet and train them to eat fresh food and not rely on something that comes out of a box, the change is astronomical, and it takes about 2 weeks to see a complete turnaround in someone's headspace, attitude, energy levels, quality of sleep. Obviously weight loss, that's a byproduct of being healthy, but something transforms from eating whole food. And I think it's also because it's so simple. How can a piece of spinach change my life? You know,
ask Papa, he knows, right?
But there's no one answer. There's no one thing that's going to change. There's no one pill. It's a combination of things, and that changes people profoundly. And they go, I have to do it. It's no longer an option.
Jane, I want to ask you to give us a little bit of and any of you actually, a little bit of a food labels 101.
First of all, people don't read labels.
Yeah.
They actually don't.
Yeah.
So I think...
Okay, I'm the strange one, right?
Yeah. A lot of people don't. They just pick it up. And I think it's false advertising a lot of the time, where they're saying for extra energy or fortified, and they use those...
Zero fat.
That's it.
Forgetting about the sugar.
Exactly. Yeah. Sugar-free. But it doesn't mean that that product is healthy. It means that they've just tainted it with other things.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do, well, when I'm doing a workshop, I talk about the most common food, and I hold up an ice cream container bought from a regular convenience store, and I say to people, please stand up and do a happy dance when you hear the word cream in a regular tub of ice cream. And everybody's ready, and you can see them waiting in anticipation, and we're doing the vanilla, which is the least amount of ingredients, and they're waiting, and I end with paprika. Which is the most natural product of the entire ice cream container.
And it's in the least amount because you've ended with it,
exactly,
right?
And it's vanilla. So what are they doing to the ice cream if we look at paprika, which is bright orange, and a vanilla ice cream, which is mostly white?
Yeah.
No one did the happy dance with the cream because there is no cream in ice cream.
Yeah.
In the conventional ones. So, I mean, do people really know that they're not eating iced cream, which is what the word actually means? Ice cream has 4 ingredients, vanilla. It has cream, it has egg yolks, it has raw honey, and it will have a bit of vanilla powder. That's it. That's how you make ice cream. Why aren't we eating real ice cream?
Yeah, because, again, we're saying we don't have the time to make it, or we don't want to put in the effort to make it. Yes, Jane, you want to add to what...
The big problem I really have with food labels is, first of all, yes, you do put the highest ingredient first and right down to the end one, but if there's a constituent in that product that's lower than a certain percentage, and various preservatives and colorants and flavorants have different percentages that they are allowed to leave out, you find that there's a lot of things that's left out. I deal with sometimes really, really, really healthy people, and one of their highest toxicities is aspartame. Now, that's something which is a sugar substitute, which basically it's a protein, and it causes severe nervous damage, and it's forever, you know. So I know that there's things underneath. I know that we also know that it's not written there and it's not even thought about, is what about the preparation of that food? I know we'll talk about salt just now, but that product could be containing food that's got insecticides and chemicals in it from its growth, first of all. It could also be a genetically modified food.
Yeah.
And genetically modified foods are serious because...
Give us a sense of why they're so dangerous, because that's another question that just keeps on coming up.
Huge
why
area,
is genetically modified bad for me?
We need to be absolutely vigilant about this, because a genetically modified food, which you know anyway, is where you have taken the genetic material from a food. It could be fish, it could be a corn, it could be anything, right? Let's say you took the gene out of the fish and you introduce it into viruses or bacteria, whatever. They then replicate with this gene, they assimilate it, and it becomes part of them. Then you take that gene from a microbiological point of view and put it into a tomato. That tomato then, from a genetic point of view, assimilates that genetic structure into its DNA code, and it starts being that new tomato, which has enhanced shelf life, probably protected the plant from poison while it was growing.
It looks very pretty because organic fruit and veggies aren't
it's huge,
as beautiful.
It's huge, the shelf life, and it wasn't eaten. So, you know, if an insect doesn't eat something, then you must know
there's
that
a problem.
on one level. Obviously, a biodynamically grown food won't be eaten either because it's balanced. But anyway, so then we eat that. Okay, then what happens to us? What are the repercussions for us? And they've done tests on rats. One of them, they did 40 rats. And they found within 2 weeks, 10 of them were dead. And then they opened up the rats after the month period, and they found blood and lesions inside the intestinal tract of these things. And those tomatoes were put on the shelf.
And this is what we're putting into our
bodies. And we're putting it into our bodies. But then that genetic structure, the tomato, imprints on our DNA. So if you've done corn and they've put a pesticide producing microorganism into the corn, we eat that corn, we become pesticide producing factories permanently for the rest of our life.
What are South African labeling regulations?
They're very flexible.
Are they?
Let's put it this way. No one really checks unless there's a problem and somebody reports a problem. So there's no one going along checking that and verifying and going along to the manufacturer and saying, give me your documentation, prove what you've put on the label is true. So it's very flexible, and there are certain things that aren't required to go on a label if they're under a certain amount. The problem is when you've got things that bioaccumulate in the body and you're eating too much, and there starts to be a conflict. So one person can eat X food and be fine, but the next person, even though they're not allergic to it, because of something else they're eating, there will be an overload because they're not detoxifying properly. The thing is with labels is, from the most basic point of view, if you don't recognize the word, don't eat it. That's probably your safest thing. If you wouldn't use it in that recipe, so if you've got to make your own macaroni cheese, for example, and there are things in the boxed macaroni cheese, and you don't know what that is because it's not in the recipe.
Eat something and...
Don't buy it. Just make the stuff, and make lots and freeze it, and you'll be better off.
Yeah.
So if you don't recognize the words, don't use it. If you wouldn't use it yourself in a homemade recipe, don't use it.
Well, one thing is certain, we need to shift away from the idea of macronutrients and move towards the idea of nourishment or fueling our body. When we return, we continue to discuss confusing nutritional concepts. Do stay with us.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
If you've just tuned in, we're getting practical today with demystifying food labels, and hopefully we can provide you with information that aids you when it comes to making healthier choices. We actually have some nice questions. I think we can kick off with that. The question is, I'm just going to summarize it. Basically, when you're dealing with carbs, fats, fiber, we mentioned the sodium, what makes it low sodium? When you're looking at the grams, the amount of grams of carbs, what makes it high carb? Or low fat, for example?
I think it's where that carb came from. So if you
we're looking at quality, not quantity.
Quality. So your carbohydrate is made up of all sorts of things. Fiber is part of your carbohydrate equation. Sugar is part of your carbohydrate equation. So you want if your total carb is 10 grams, you want the majority of that to be from fiber, not from sugar. So that's how they get to the total carbohydrate value. Okay. So when you're looking at a label, you want the fiber to be over 5 grams, ideally, because you need between 25 and 30 grams of fiber a day.
Okay.
And most of us don't even get 5. And that's a big problem on all sorts of levels. Yeah. You want your sugars to be as low as possible. So if I've got somebody in the practice and they want to lose weight, we try and aim for under 2 grams of sugar per 100 grams, which is very low.
Okay.
So less than, as low as you can go. So higher on the fiber, lower on the sugar. But there's no point going and eating a healthy meal today and then throwing it all out the window tomorrow, because then it's kind of irrelevant. So, there's a lot of trickery in the food industry.
Yeah.
Big example is protein bars. So the protein bar will go high protein, 0 sugar. But if you turn it around, there's 57 grams of carbohydrates, maybe not sugar, it's made up of all sorts of other things, and only 20 grams of protein. So you can't call it high protein because everything else is higher than the protein content.
Yeah.
So you've got to turn it around and go, out of 100, what's scoring highest on this label?
And also you find a lot of sugar alcohols in protein bars. Just explain to us what that is.
So sugar alcohol is made in a lab. It's not something you'll find in nature. And it's a polymer or a piece of a carbohydrate or a fiber or a plant it's sweet. So it can be used in place of sugar. So in small amounts, it's fine.
So xylitol,
erythritol, sorbitol, those are things that are all used in sugar or sweet-making processes, especially sugar-free gum and things like that. But there's a warning, and it says that in some people it may induce diarrhea, nausea, etc. But if it's a whole food and if it's a natural food, it shouldn't cause anything. And,
Okay.
and in large amounts, it can't possibly be good for you. And there is evidence to say that it's not very good for the stomach. It can trigger leaky gut. In small amounts, it might be fine, but arsenic in small amounts is still arsenic. You know, poison in a small amount is still a poison. So you want to get your sugars from whole foods.
Yeah.
You want to eat your food. It shouldn't be an invisible ingredient. And that's where we are stockpiling huge amounts of artificial things that are showing up all over the place. And again, manufacturers aren't really obligated to put them in if they're under a certain percentage.
So, I mean, I've heard that honey spikes your insulin levels the same amount as sugar would, but often then when we say rather eat your sugar, if it's raw honey, it's got other antifungal, antibacterial qualities as well. So would honey be a good sugar substitute in your opinion?
Absolutely, a brilliant substitute, and it's always lovely to have it with a protein.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a smoothie, a protein smoothie, you put in your clean whey, squeeze a good squeeze of raw honey.
What makes
in it
whey clean? Sorry, I'm interrupting you there.
It depends. We buy a really good brand where it's just whey. It's really just only the whey, so there's no extra anything in it. So if you read the ingredients, you'll just see it's a whey isolate, and that's it. That's all that's in the box. Okay. So it's literally just dehydrated, to a form that it's a powder.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Little Miss Muffet eating her curds.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's how it's made. So when you take milk and you put an enzyme into milk, you get the curds, which is the cottage cheese, which is curds, and the liquid on top of the cottage cheese is whey. And that is a very bioavailable, very stomach-soothing, rich source of amino acids and glutamine, which is very good for you. But when you start adding sweeteners and colors and all sorts of other things and milk powder to bulk it up, that's where the problem comes in.
Actually, that was another question that came through. Are there healthy emulsifiers and stabilizers? Because that's another thing you'll see on the list of ingredients. It'll say, I've seen it in yogurts, for example. It'll say plain yogurt, emulsifiers, stabilizers. And I always think, but what is an emulsifier? What is the stabilizer?
Something like modified starch
as well.
Kind of things. Those things are not normal. You don't normally eat them.
They're synthetic.
Completely.
Yeah. So they're not real whole food.
Okay, so that's a warning sign. Emulsifiers, stabilizers,
anything
modified
like
starch. Okay.
An emulsifier is an agent that's put into processed food to stop it separating. So you don't get your juice separating the thick components from the water.
Yeah.
So it just keeps everything bound up. But you can use xanthan gum as an emulsifier, which is natural, completely. You can get organic xanthan gum.
Okay.
So it depends on...
Or guar gum as well.
Guar gum,
right?
yeah.
How about just shaking it?
Exactly.
Not having anything.
But the consumer looks on the shelf and thinks, that must be off because it's separated.
No.
So that's
if you look at a fresh juice, if you ever make fresh juice and you let it sit on your counter for an hour, you'll see that the liquid...
It'll separate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So
just shaking it, it's all mixed together, no emulsifiers.
Well,
no
I
nothing.
suppose we've also been taught to look for perfection. That's why I'm
Yes.
saying organic foods aren't exactly the prettiest foods, because over the years, I mean, you walk into a lot of supermarkets, all the apples look the same, all the carrots look the same, everything seems perfect. And so we've become accustomed to thinking, well, that is good fruit. And when you see a carrot that doesn't look that great, you think, that can't be great. That can't be good for me.
I think the more decomposed the food looks, the better it's going to be for you, because you know that it's not going to live forever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a preserving wax on it. You know that it's not chemically ridden. And if you had to see the shiny waxed apple versus the not as shiny apple, but still a good-looking apple, and you tasted the difference, this one would win.
I suppose
When
it's
you
about
do the
changing.
nutritional evaluation as well, you use a Brix meter. And
Okay.
you put some of the juice onto a little slide and you look through and you can see that the organic one has got much more energy, much more vitality and nutrients in it.
Even
So
when
it's
they do
easy
that
to see.
Kirlian, is it Kirlian
Kirlian.
photography? Yeah, Kirlian
Yes.
photography.
You can see the aura around it as well. So it's no doubt.
The way you tell, we actually wrote about it in our book, the way you tell is the higher the sugar level, the better quality the fruit. And that's the natural sugars in the fruit. That's because it's drawn from the soil. The soil's been good quality.
Which actually comes back to another question. Fructose has come up as a popular question. Is it good? Is it bad? Some people say it's not
there
good
again,
for you.
you're taking a high amount of it. I mean, 1 tablespoon of fructose would be equivalent to, I don't know how many apples. You wouldn't eat that amount of fructose in one go. So even though it might spike the blood sugar a little bit lower than normal glucose, let's say, you're taking such a whack of it that it's not going to be healthy for you. And it's processed. So the minute you start processing things, we've got to get back to actually, I just think, wiping out this thing about calories, what's on the label, whatever. Get your healthy food in front of you.
Yeah.
And eat it.
Some
get your
healthy foods
bananas, get your nuts.
Are in packages though. It's packaged. Yet
In its process,
healthy.
so it's next 2 and 3 and 4 steps down the line in terms of nutritional value.
Yeah.
So we've got to know that. But to me, to peel a banana and have some almonds with it or something, that's health.
Yeah. What about a can of tuna?
Can of tuna, you got to know that tuna was swimming around in mercury contaminated water. First of all the deep sea fish are. Then you put it in the tin, which has also got metals. I pick it up every day in the with my analyses. So everything you eat that's processed, that's in a packet, that's gone under some sort of transformation, has lost its nutrient value, and there's other things in it. So you need to have a look at vitality. I think this whole thing boils down to vitality and energy. Why do we eat? We need energy so that our cells can reproduce properly and we can live and think properly. Every single thing that we look at and put into our mouth is going to affect that cellular activity at the end of the day. So you ask yourself the question, am I going to eat this? Because it's going to do this for me, for my body, for my vitality, or am I going to eat this, which is actually going to lower my vitality, lower my energy frequency? And I'm not going to do that because it's like driving up to a petrol station where you've got 2 petrol pumps, and one's got floaters and this is and that is, and let's not even talk price, and the other one says, filtered, unleaded, pure, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to draw an analogy.
Yeah.
You're not going to put the junk in your car because you know the car's going to splatter, it's not going to get you there, it's going to have to go in for service. So my real question is to the listeners is, why are we doing this then to our bodies? Why do we have such disregard and irresponsible approach to ourselves?
Yeah.
That's what I can't get over. And then arrive at me when you are so low, so depleted, so everything, no doctor can help you anymore. And actually you've missed the simple aspect of just, vitalize your body.
Yeah, I suppose I can see the passion because you see this every day. And Nick, you spoke about it in that sometimes it takes disease or it takes a life-threatening occurrence and occasion for someone to wake up. And I always think, well, why must we wait until that point before we decide to start making a healthier decision?
Because we sort of gravitate to homeostasis. So we start off feeling fine, hopefully, and then we do something to ourselves and we get used to the feeling. So we normalize that not optimal feeling, and that's our new baseline. And then because we're not feeling really okay, we find something that we can eat to lift our mood, to lift our energy. It's usually the wrong thing and it's a quick fix. And then we go to a new level of discomfort. But then over time, we get used to that as well.
Yeah.
And eventually it gets to a point where something breaks.
Yeah.
And the discomfort doesn't normalize because it's so extreme. But we are creatures of habit, we are creatures of pleasure, and we will do anything as quickly as possible to get us into a place of pleasure and homeostasis.
And we live in an instant gratification world and society as well.
That's why we make bad choices, because it's going to give me a short-term benefit.
Yeah.
It's like buying long-term insurance, life insurance. We don't want to buy life insurance, but we have to. We do realize the value, and eating healthy food is life insurance, long-term insurance, that you're going to be a perfectly functional 90-year-old who does not have to depend on other people to get out of bed.
I think that food now, whole food, the food that you can pick from the ground or that's roaming around, is actually going to become a superfood.
Yeah.
To everybody. You have superfoods like macas and spirulinas and cacaos. I really think that good whole food is going to become a superfood. Because it's that nourishing for the body. We need to get people to learn to cook from scratch. I do a lot of that with my work, actually re-educating people to go back to what our granny's granny used to make. And it's going back to traditional foods like stocks and ferments and all those really healthy things that are so good for your gut.
Fermented foods.
Exactly. This is what we need to be eating. We need to stop being lazy. We need to make time for ourselves.
It's almost like, wow, that changed something.
You make time for your best program on TV. You're prepared to spend the installment on your car that's astronomical, but you're not prepared to spend money on the food. You're the person that's going to last the longest, not your car, not whatever processed food you buy. So it's time to start loving ourselves.
Yeah, most of the calories we get from food come from protein, carbohydrates, and fat. These are referred to as macronutrients, as we've mentioned. We also get other important nutrients from food, such as vitamins and minerals. These don't constitute a significant source of calories, so they're called micronutrients. So a little bit of nutrition 101 there. But don't go away, because when we come back, we find out how to choose foods to ensure that you get a good dose of macro and micronutrients.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Welcome back to Real Health. If you've just tuned in, we're asking questions. A lot of your questions have come through about living a healthier life. And a main question is, does the idea of a balanced diet really exist? That's a question I get quite a bit. Can you really achieve balance? What is balance?
Depends on the person again.
Yeah.
You know, because for some person, a higher protein intake might be more balanced for them, also because they might be doing a sport or the nature of how they live, their lifestyle. And other people, it might need more carbohydrate-based diet than others. Depends on your blood group. So balanced is really, again, it boils down to an individual thing. And it's hard to live a balanced diet. It's hard to go and buy a supplement also that is going to suit you, because somebody sat in a lab and they worked out this amount of vitamin A, this amount of vitamin B1, this amount of B6. And I get it also in the pharmacy. Should I take this? But have a look at the vitamin A. It's really, really hard. Now, vitamin A and D are fat soluble. Okay, so if you take that supplement and you've already got enough vitamin A, what's going to happen? That's why it gets back to practical and simple. If you eat food that's nature provided
in the right
for,
ratios.
it's in the right ratio.
Yeah.
You can never. If you take vitamin C from rose hips, let's say, you can't get kidney stones from that. But if you take synthetic ascorbic acid that's made in a laboratory, you will get kidney stones. So that's where vitamin C suddenly produces kidney stones. It doesn't in the natural form, you know.
Yeah.
So balance is a very sort of wide.
I'll tell you, I get irritated when I hear that, eat a balanced diet, because how I started, I did a fitness transformation, and I tell you, I was reading every label, looking at those calories, counting those calories. I had numerous apps on my phone, and I was adding my food in every day and calculating from kilojoules to calories. Oh my gosh, it's the most tedious way to live. It's labor intensive. It probably stressed me out more than anything else. And so now I do eat more freely, but it's been a journey. So you saying, get rid of the notion and the idea of calorie counting.
Absolutely.
And then where do we start after that?
Look, psychologically as well, the minute you tell somebody you can only have 1,200 calories a day, you come out of here, I want to eat everything.
Yeah.
So just forget it. You've got to start learning where you feel comfortable, where your satiety levels are. Balanced diet, I'd rather say eat a whole food diet. Make sure you're eating lots of whole food all day long, often, that you never feel deprived, never feel hungry. When you have energy, when you don't have cravings, when you're sleeping well, you know you're eating balanced. Because if you're not eating balanced, you're never going to feel well.
Yeah.
So yes.
I even feel like the notion and the concept, or the construct maybe, of eating whole food goes over people's heads. So I walk into a supermarket. I should stick to the outside of the supermarket. That's where the fresh fruit and vegetables is. Exactly. And I should try as much as possible not to go to the inner aisles. Is that what you guys are saying?
The best part would be to go to an organic market.
Yes,
or to
ideally.
go to an organic store.
Yeah.
And then you can shop their whole shop.
What do you say to people when they say, but that's expensive?
It is expensive, but cancer's expensive too.
But not really when you have a look at the ratio of nutrients in an organic or a more expensive, supposedly more expensive food than a not. Let's just take oats.
Yeah.
So you look at the processed non-GMO oats, and you look at the unprocessed non-genetically modified oats. Okay. So there's way more iron, copper, all the trace minerals that you were talking about in an organically grown food. So actually, you don't have to have as much
of your multivitamin or additional supplements
or the actual
as
food
well.
itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
Of the non-organic food, you don't need that much. You
Eating
don't
smaller
need 5
quantities.
carrots that are not organic versus 1 carrot that is organic, because you're getting 1,000 times more copper, for example, in the one organic carrot versus the other.
I actually tried it. I went to an organic market and I bought all the fruit and veg that I'd use to make my morning juice or smoothie, and it actually, for the same amount that I would pay for a packet of carrots at a normal supermarket, it was the same amount at the organic market. And you can definitely taste the difference.
Yeah, you can. The more we support organic produce, the costs will come down, because there'll be a demand for it. Because now it's still quite seen as a novel thing. And it doesn't actually have to be organic.
Supply and demand, the economics
grown
as well. Yes,
I mean, Jane does a phenomenal, I learned my gardening through Jane and composting and stuff. And I mean, growing your own vegetables, literally pulling that spinach straight out of your own garden and popping it into a juicer. You couldn't get more nutrient-dense food than that.
Yeah.
And that even in your kitchen, you can sprout.
Yes.
You can grow living food in your kitchen.
Wintertime.
Absolutely. And sprouting, again, straight from the jar onto a salad. delicious and so nutrient dense, packed with enzymes.
For
and goodness.
someone that walks into a store and perhaps there's not enough of a variety of organic fruit and vegetables, Dr. Nandi mentioned it, that the thicker the skin, the pesticides don't penetrate as far into the fruit as possible. What other tips can you give people when they're buying fruit and veg and perhaps they can't get to the organic market?
So my first line of defense is, if you can get 30% organic, you're still better off than doing nothing.
Okay.
So for people who really can't afford to or don't have time, also, how much do you throw away? So if you start offsetting what you throw away compared to just buying enough organic, it's going to end up being cheaper.
Yeah.
But just do what you can. Secondly, if you can't do organic, washing vegetables in distilled water will pull off the pesticide compounds.
Okay.
This is not true for vegetables who are genetically modified and have a pesticide systemic.
Okay.
But if it's just on the outside and it's sprayed vegetables, distilled water, because it has a neutral molecule, will suck off whatever's on the outside of the plant. Or you could do water with a little bit of white vinegar. That's also very good to soak off mostly the waxes.
You get a food-grade hydrogen peroxide as well.
Yes.
You could just soak into. Lugol's iodine is another thing. You can even buy an O3 washer, which could be an investment for life.
Yeah.
It literally ionizes the water and gets around about 94% of the bacteria on your non-organic produce. We all survive with a bit of non-organic.
Yeah.
I mean, you need apples when you've got babies,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. And washing your food thoroughly will activate. It also extends the life of your vegetables and fruits as well in the fridge.
We're going to come back to other practical tips and some of your questions as well. Go, go, go. That seems to characterize our lives nowadays. So how do we ensure that we still eat healthy? When we come back, we find out how.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real Health. If you've just joined us, we're talking about making healthier decisions. Meals on the go, yays, nays. What should we be avoiding? Vending machines are a big one. I remember I always used to go to the vending machine because at the end of the day, it was just so much quicker. And trying to become healthier and bringing nuts and all of that was a very difficult thing to do. Are there any healthy things that you can choose?
Make bulk. So if you're going to do a trail mix, just do a huge trail mix. Put it in packets.
Okay.
Throw it in the freezer and pull out a packet as you need.
What about juicing?
Every
Smoothies?
day.
Juicing.
Every day.
You know, what's really useful is you've got to spend some time. So do it on the weekend where you take all your veggies and your fruit and put it into little packets or jars and freeze it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to lose nutrients by freezing.
Yeah.
And then every day you've got a little frozen pack, you put that in your blender and press the button, take it to work. It's quick. It's quick when you get into a rhythm and you start getting a routine. But it's about get up half an hour earlier.
Yeah. You often see honey with labels that say choice grade. That's about it. Then you see some that says pure South African honey. And then you see some labels that say raw, non-irradiated honey. Obviously, that's what we're looking for. Pure honey, choice grade, what is
you'll
that?
see the one that's treated is runny. It's generally been heated. And sometimes they've also added a sugar aspect to it, so it's not pure honey in the first place. So if you have honey on your shelf and the ants come, you know it's not honey.
So we're looking for the words raw and non-irradiated.
Yes.
What does choice grade mean? Do you know?
It's lingo.
From
it's
China.
Just lingo.
Because I've seen some honeys that say honey sourced from South Africa, China, and Argentina. I'm like, really?
No.
What did you get from China and what did you get from Argentina to add to our South African honey?
It's got additives in it.
Yeah, you also get grading is based on clarity and color, and it's just lingo for labeling, so you think that you're buying a superior product.
Okay.
But the closer to nature, the better.
You mentioned a nice fact about honey sourced from a local area helps build your immunity and...
So if you consume honey that is from bees that are in your neighborhood or your province, they get their pollen from plants in the area. So your the plants that are frothing their pollen that's going up your nose and making you sneeze. So you build up natural antibodies from the honey. It's like an inoculation. It's natural inoculation.
Added to that, I've read that if you, say, make a drink with honey and then you pop it in the microwave, you essentially nuke everything. It's like having... syrup or sugar water. So on the back of that, is microwaving bad?
Yeah.
Should we not be microwaving at all?
Okay, well, first of all, it makes the honey toxic.
Okay.
First of all. But secondly, of course, because the frequency of the microwave is what we're looking at here, and it denatures the protein completely. What is the ramification of that? The body can't recognize it. So what does it do with it? Okay, so it's got to find something. So generally the lymphatic system gets blocked, and generally the kidneys take huge strain because they've got to now excrete this protein molecule that they don't know what it hasn't been metabolized, and we don't know what it is.
So we have to be heating up on our stoves.
Pretty much.
Yes.
And that's over and above all the BPA, the non-BPA containers
Talk to us about BPA.
BPA is toxic. It's a toxin that comes off plastic. And
in some cans as well, right?
Lining, but it's normally a plastic lining on a can. And it basically leaches into the food, the chemical. So and a lot of it is when you heat up a plastic that is not BPA free, those chemicals leach into the product.
So all the bottled water that we're buying.
And if it's sitting out in the sun on the back of a truck.
Yeah. But BPA is not the only one. You know, there's lots and lots of derivatives and things that are in plastic.
So it's better to drink your water out of glass bottles if you're buying. Yeah. And in fact, that was a question from Dina where she said that if it doesn't say BPA free, then it's safe to assume that plastic container has got BPA in it.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about partially hydrogenated oils? That's another label that we've seen. In fact, a nice story about this is I saw at a store they had nut butters, and the label said Banting friendly, and then you turn it around and you read the list of ingredients, and it says 99% almond butter or macadamia butter and 1% partially hydrogenated oils.
It's a method of preserving. So anything with fats, what they do is it's a change of state. So you've got your metabolic bonds in a fat, and when you heat up or introduce hydrogen, you're changing the metabolic structure of the fat,
which makes it more stable at room temperature.
It makes it more stable, but it's really, really bad for you on every level. So it is carcinogenic. Bottom line.
So what else are people looking out for when it comes to seed oils?
Well, what they should just do with that nut butter is just put an earlier expiry date on it. I mean, how difficult is that?
How do they determine sell-by and best before dates? Do you know?
Yeah, you make a product and you leave it on the shelf and you test it every week or so until it starts going off. And then you go, this lasts a month. What can we do to the product to extend that shelf life? Can we...
That is scary.
Yeah. But there are ways of preserving products almost indefinitely. I mean, bottling jams or putting a certain amount of acidity via lemon juice into something. You wouldn't do it with nut butter, but you could do it with a vegetable juice, for instance. So if you're making a vegetable juice for sale and you put natural ascorbic acid in there from lemon or from orange, you'd extend the shelf life because it won't discolor, and you'll probably get a few more days out of it. So it's a trial and error process when you manufacture food. You just test it until it starts to bubble, and then you know.
Yeah.
And we've got to ask ourselves the question, why aren't they preserving fruit, dried fruit with lemon? Why is that not being done?
Yeah, because there's always sulfur dioxide.
Exactly, and there's loads of preservatives in it. You can preserve fruit perfectly with lemon.
And it's very difficult to find preservative-free dried fruit.
Well, perhaps we've got to ask the question, is the lemon more expensive than the preservative?
That's it, the cost. It's always a cost factor.
But can we just get back to oils? Because it's really a pet area, and it's where we want to just really demystify, I would say. Now, that nut butter that we were talking about earlier is on a shelf in a see-through glass.
Yes.
Now, nuts are very rich in oil, okay? So it's on the shelf, the UV light from the shop, and often the light coming in from the sun is now, that product has been exposed to that twice. Two things. When they made that nut butter, were they careful that the air didn't get in and oxidize the fat earlier? So all of these things are oxidizing the fat and making it carcinogenic, and dangerous. It causes a free radical inside our bodies. And this is what we're all walking around with. You see it in the live blood. The red blood cells are damaged by free radicals. We don't have enough vitamin A, C, and E and the antioxidants to actually cope with what's happening. So that's why we're lowering our frequency, lowering our vitality, and getting things like cancer. So when you buy oil, it's really something that one has to really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Best would be to buy an oil in a dark bottle.
Before we run out of time, another one that I have to throw into the mix is milk. Raw milk, pasteurized, what's the other word that we see? Homogenated, long life milk. What's the deal there, Nikki? We asked this at the Dr. Nandi event.
I've never seen anyone do well on milk.
Yeah.
It causes mucus. It causes bloating in most people. You know, there's no one answer for anybody. But it goes back to the bottom line is we're the only species that drinks the milk of another species. So you've got to ask yourself, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Some people do well. I don't know. You know, raw milk has a lot of, you'll have your vitamin D, all your fat-soluble vitamins are still alive and present in raw milk. High levels of vitamin C. The minute you homogenize, pasteurize, heat up, process milk, you're getting rid of or spinning it, that centrifugal spinning, you're damaging the nutrient value of the milk.
So is raw milk safe to consume, though?
If you know the source, absolutely.
If you know the source.
I make a kefir, a cow's kefir with raw milk, and it's packed with the immunity of the healthy cow. We know exactly the cows are hanging around at North Riding Farm. we know the source, and the kefir is packed with probiotics. It's brilliant to use as a base for a smoothie, and keeps.
I find that I don't do well in milk, but kefir and organic yogurt and all of that, I'm fine
fermented,
with that.
you see, so the protein aspect has been altered. It's partially digested already for us, that's why.
But milk for the sake of milk, I don't think that's an option, really, in a healthy
And you're finding more and more people are saying that they're lactose intolerant as well. Well, becoming healthier means being willing to look at things differently. It requires a paradigm shift, and you've tuned into Real Health, so it's safe to say that you already have made that shift to some extent. But what about your friends and your family? When we come back, we discuss ways to bring them over to the greener side.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Well, welcome back to the show. One thing that we have to touch on is the idea, or call it a perception, that it takes longer to prepare a healthy meal as opposed to buying a processed, microwavable, heat up, pop in the microwave type of meal. We're preaching to the converted here because everyone is tuning into Real Health because they already have that mindset. But it's about getting your family and your friends on board. How can people do that, Nix?
Okay, so the first thing to do is be an example. People gravitate towards somebody who's functioning well, who's looking good, who's got energy, who's got a zest for life. And they go, whatever you're doing, I want that as well because I don't have it. So you've got to be a living example if you want to convert anybody. So that's the first thing. You've got to live the lifestyle. And then people ask questions and then they try. If you're looking at converting a family into a way of eating, you've got to remember food, healthy food should also smell nice, taste nice, look nice, be palatable. There's still a perception that eating healthy is dry chicken breasts and broccoli, which is exactly what it isn't.
Yes, definitely not.
Exactly. So we've got to be experimental in the kitchen. A healthy meal does not have to take more than 10 minutes to prepare. There's another perception that it takes a lot of time and you're going to spend your life in the kitchen and you're exhausted. It doesn't take long. You've just got to be clever about it. And not, herbs and spices and garlic and all these things are wonderfully medicinal. And to use those in your meals is very important. And then you start educating the palate. So the family becomes more discerning. They go, oh, that was divine. And when you go back occasionally to eating something you bought at a store, it's like, can't eat that again. It just doesn't.
In fact, I always say to people, give your palate time to adjust as well. It's not going to happen overnight. With some things it may be. The raw cacao fudge. Yes, you may like it instantaneously, but when it comes to other things, just give your palate time to adjust as well. One of your tips is to start making your own fermented foods, your sauerkrauts and milk kefirs.
Absolutely, and it's incredibly easy. And if you make it yourself, it's actually a lot cheaper. So it's about 20 Rand for an organic cabbage, and you can get about maybe 1.5 liters of sauerkraut from that. All it is it's cabbage with a good quality salt, a Himalayan, a Kalahari rock salt, a sea salt, and some organic seeds if you like, and you just massage it in, and then you leave it for 2 or 3 weeks, and you can leave it for much longer if you prefer a sour flavor. So it's incredibly easy to make. Same with the water kefirs, same with the milk kefirs, all the fermented products. Even things like stocks. So you're talking about a dried chicken breast. Pop that dried chicken breast into some sort of stock, a homemade stock, using grass-fed bones, which is literally just taking some apple cider vinegar or any kind of vinegar.
Is that what leaches the minerals from the bones?
Exactly,
Okay.
And just dump it in a slow cooker, and you leave it for 2-3 days, and then the more gelatinous it becomes, the better it is for you.
Yeah, and it is quite yummy,
it does.
actually.
It takes your food to another level, even if you're not a chef. You don't have to be a chef, but you can get good quality foods, and that can go into curries, can go into chicken casseroles, into soups. Anything you want.
Or just like that,
And it's incredibly nourishing for your gut. You'll know that your elimination is going to be, you're going to be
improved.
Doing a little happy dance, especially if you're suffering.
A lot of people are
Any
really out
ideas?
there only because of that factor,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and because they're eating so badly, their gut doesn't know what to do. But when you start eating things that really nourish your gut, and because those enzymes in the stock are just so bioavailable for your body. Your body just says, thank you.
Soaks
And it's
it
just,
up.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely absorbing it. So those kind of foods are so important to be
and
including
nourishing
in.
and healing for your digestive
Yeah.
system. And we can talk about food till the cows come home, but at the end of the day, if you can't absorb it, then
Well, that's
it's
a big
to no
problem.
avail. Yeah.
So you know what, we got to also take steps back. So our ancestors, eating was like an occasion, you know, in the day, and candles were lit, and you sat round and you talked, and you didn't get up immediately after you ate, and you spoke about wonderful things, and you laughed and all the rest of it. But like bring us to now, we're eating in the car, we're eating in front of the TV, we're doing our phone, we're doing this. We're not even conscious of what's going in, whether we haven't even never mind read the label. And this causes a big turmoil in the body, okay? Because actually eating starts with visualizing the food, first of all, then touching the food. All right, our saliva glands already starting to produce enzymes for digestion, okay? And now I've seen it, the pigments come in, and then you need to chew. So you need to chew it really so that it's liquid, because we're swallowing huge chunks. And then what happens is that you've got this whole big mess in your stomach. That's now your stomach's got to deal with it. Plus, you never sat, so you ran around, you got up and you moved. Then you get early emptying of the stomach, which those huge pieces then end up in the intestine. And if you haven't been eating properly and you've got leaky gut and that, those huge protein molecules, fat molecules, or whatever, end up in the blood. And bottom line, all of that, you know, we end up with autoimmune disease. But we also end up with things like constipation. And we also end up with things where we are deficient in minerals and vitamins, but we've got the money to buy the food, but we're deficient.
Yeah.
So rather eat more simple food that you can see what it's like, and relax when you're eating, so that those digestive enzymes can get secreted.
So we're coming back to those old family values of eating around the table,
Exactly.
finding out how everyone is doing as well. Speaking about families, if you've got a kid, teenager, or even a youngster that you haven't been feeding them the healthiest food of late, and now you realize, okay, I need to change their diet. So obviously they're going to protest. What do?
It's incredibly difficult.
You get them involved.
Yeah,
And you start slowly.
and they fight, and they perform, and they say, I want Joey's white bread, and this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
We have clients that their little kiddies are really suffering. It's about the parent being the role model. Our little 3-year-old wants the green juices because mommy and daddy are drinking the green juices.
Yeah.
He eats everything we eat. You know what I mean? It's about what we eat. And if you can get your child to eat the same food that you're eating, and you're eating well, then you're a winner.
Fortunately, the trend is changing, and it's actually quite cool to eat.
Because we
to have
realize what we're doing to our
smoothies.
kids. That's the thing.
But amongst the youth, the trend is to drink more water and
It's
to order
fashionable.
smoothies and to order salads. The trend is there because they're seeing the effects of weight on and skin acne and things like that. So once you start and have a look, if you eat this way, there are going to be these physical changes. You know, then...
Although with smoothies, sometimes the catch there is that they can be very high in sugar, right, Nix?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you go out to certain shops and buy smoothies, they're full of ice cream, and it's sold as a smoothie, and a smoothie shouldn't have ice cream in it or even flavored yogurt. And many parents give their kids pink yogurts and green yogurts. It's yogurt, it must be good for them. It's melted ice cream, really. It's
because
the
this
same
whole frozen
ingredients.
yogurt thing is also a craze, and people think it's healthier, and they see Greek yogurt there, but it's not actually Greek yogurt.
And I think a lot of our parents underestimate their children's intelligence. We think just eat what you're told, just don't ask questions. But if you take time and you sit with children and you explain to them what certain foods do to their body and what other foods do to their body, they are excited about it. Now they want to try new things. So it's a big mistake to say just shush and eat. You know?
So
and also you can't just put, like, say, an avo dip in front of everybody and expect them all to say, wow, that's going to be amazing, and feel good after it, because we're different. You know, our blood type's different and all the rest of it. So the best thing really is to put bowls around where people can just choose and take what they want, because their body will know also instantly, wow, the Brazil nuts, flip, I need selenium, I know I need it. So they'll gravitate it, they'll grab it. So that's for me the easiest, is to be practical, put the foods out. You don't have to keep them warm, you haven't wasted money cooking or anything like that. They're all there available for people to take what they need when they need it.
And Nikki mentioned a good point as well, as getting your kids involved. So often I make homemade ice cream, and I put it on the floor, you know, and he opens up the raw creams and pours the creams in, and then he's got the whisk and he's doing the eggs, and he loves it. You know, obviously he loves ice cream,
Yeah.
but he loves
His
he
brain
loves
is
being
engaging
healthy.
and soaking up that
The
information.
same with doing some nice vegetable muffins, homemade muffins.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing where you're hiding the vegetables, but they're loving the product.
And their palate, then, you know, they grow up with a healthy palate. You know, there's so much more to cover, as with every episode on Real Health. But thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you in studio for the first time. Always good having you, Nix. And I'd love to hear from you guys. If you thought today was informative, if it's exactly what you've been struggling with, if you have great stories about how you got your family over to the green side, the healthier side, the organic side, please share those with us. You can pop us an email to info@thehomechannel.co.za. Also, if you want to get in touch with our beautiful and amazing guests from today's show, you can visit thehomechannel.co.za. Until next time, remember our mantra, our health mantra: you are healthy, vibrant, and lean. Love and take care of your being. Cheers.
The summer trees, but I'm feeling better now. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.